We're here to discuss the overbearing philosophy of our group, philosophy of liberty. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think I found about 20 other things.
Now we get there's one major problem I do take with the libertarian movement, and that it's focused too much solely on political philosophy. Because there are other areas of philosophy that are equally important. It's not just so much bringing about political change as it is bringing about a cultural change. You see, in this country we have an entire culture built on the idea that we have no personal responsibility, that someone else is going to take care of us from the cradle to the grave, that no matter what happens to us, there's a safety net. And that's what we need to change. And that won't be done just through the philosophy of liberty. See, the philosophy of liberty in itself, as I said, is a political philosophy, but there are four major areas of philosophy that we need to cover. There's epistemology, logic, there's ethics, which philosophy of liberty falls under. And then there's aesthetics. Now, in order to truly bring about the change we want to see in this country, we have to cover all four issues. But that's an entirely other subject that we'll go about in some other lecture, I suppose. But being a politically active group, we will focus on the philosophy of liberty tonight as a political philosophy. Now, the first principle of the philosophy of liberty is self-ownership. Now, self-ownership says that we are our own owners, that we have no obligation to anyone else except ourselves. However, before we can prove this, we have to accept that individuals have this: free will. Now, as I told you before we got started, there are many professors out here who say, you know, we don't have such things as free will. That we're just a product of our culture, that we're a product of our upbringing. That no matter what happens to us, anything that happens in our brain is just a chemical reaction. And that we really have no personal volition in the matter. Now, you're going to run across people like that all the time, but the point is we all have free will. Now, I want all of you in this room right now to just raise your right hand. All right, now you can put it back down. Now, you're going to ask one of you real quick, why did you raise your hand?
Because you asked me to.
See, that's the answer I was expecting, and I'm glad you said it that way. But see, the point is, I didn't go up to your head or anything and put a gun to your head, did I? I didn't threaten you with force, I didn't make you raise your hand. In the end, you raised your hand because you chose to. And that's the important thing here. Because no matter what you do, everything is your still own choice, except in cases of force and violence. If I had told you to go jump off a bridge, doubtlessly you probably wouldn't have done it. You would have chosen not to because that was your own choice to make. However, we have people who disagree with that, who say, oh, you did it just because it was, a random pattern that happened. That's not the case. Now, because of free will, we have the right to pursue what we want to pursue. We can say, oh, I know what's best for me. I know what I want. I know my values, and I'm going to pursue my values. And we should have the free will to do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't live very successful lives. We wouldn't live very happy lives, because we would be kept inherently from the things that we value. Now, the government, by its very nature, is force. As I told you, the only thing that can keep us from our free will, from our values, is force. As George Washington famously said in his farewell speech, government is not eloquence, it's not reason, it's force, like fire, a fearful servant, or a troublesome master. Reverse that, troublesome servant, fearful master. Now, what it's saying is that government has its uses. It institutes justice. It ensures that our liberty is protected. It ensures that we can pursue our own best interests without threat of force from other individuals. Now, this is very important. However, the fearful master is entirely something different. Picture a fire you have in your fireplace at home. On a cold night, electricity's out, you don't have any other source of heat. You're using it. It is your servant. You're using it for what you want to do. It's keeping you safe. But you leave it unattended for just 5 minutes, and an ember will fly out on that floor. It'll catch your house on fire, and no longer are you its master. You are a fearful person, afraid of dying of that force. Now, originally, people could just leave. If that fire got too big, they would move elsewhere, particularly in the age of exploration. People spent their entire life savings to leave the burning continent of Europe and move to America, where the fire was less. And then as that fire grew up, as we expanded and our government expanded, people moved westward, further out of the way of the government. And as they continued to do that, eventually the government moved west and we moved back to the center. But now we have nowhere to move. But that fire is still burning. And we don't have any choice now but to fight it. And to fight it, in order to fight it, we have to know what we stand for. Now, life is our primary right. All other rights are simply corollary to our right to life. Right to liberty, right to property, pursuit of happiness, whatever you want to say, all of those are simply derivatives from our right to life. Because we have the free will necessary to have freedom, in essence, we have the freedom to live, to pursue our own interests. Now, the negation of life is murder. Anytime the government takes away our life from us, they are murdering. However, the negation of liberty is slavery, and the negation of property rights is theft. They steal from us, they enslave us, and they murder us. Now, a lot of people disagree with that. They say, oh, we're not enslaved. There aren't any chains on my wrists. There aren't any shackles on my feet. But the fact is, we're not free. Our money is constantly being taken from us to the government to be distributed elsewhere. So that it's basically not even ours anymore. We don't have a claim to the things that we earn. It's their choice, it's their life and their responsibility. And to say that the government should be responsible for them is contrary to their free will. They're saying the government knows better than that person, that the government knows better than an individual, that the collective knows better than I do. And that's not the case. We have to be able to assert that we know what's best for us, because this is the only body we have. This is the only mind we have. No one else knows it better than we do. So why in the world should the government or should some third party come in and tell us how to live our lives? Now, in order to have a government that does not interfere with these things, we have to have a government set up by principles of justice. Justice is, as many people call it, cold, unfeeling, and cruel, as many people on the progressive side have it. The fact is, justice is fair. You get what you deserve, and nothing more and nothing less. That's what government was instituted for. Originally, the Founding Fathers set up the Constitution so that the federal government would not have any more powers than they deemed necessary. Unfortunately, they did leave some loopholes, taking to clause and others. But the fact is, the government was kept to a minimalist level so that people would otherwise be relatively free to do whatever they wanted. Now, obviously, the progressive era came in, the Constitution was thrown out the window, and the government expanded at an incredible rate. But the idea of justice changed. People no longer asked for what they deserved, they asked for what other people had, thinking that equality is equivalent to liberty. See, I advocate for equality through liberty, saying that if we are free under the law, then we are equal under the law. However, they are saying we should be equal through the law, that everyone should have the same results regardless of the efforts they put in, that everyone should receive the same income, the same outcomes of their endeavors, and so on and so forth. But when you think about it, that destroys the very basic principle of justice, saying, I worked, let's just say 7 hours today, and my pay, I got $10 an hour, $70. You work none. But however, you're claiming that since we should be equal in every sense of our lives, he is entitled to half my income. That someone else is entitled to the things I earn, to my property, and consequently to my life. Because it is my life that I sacrifice to put towards my property. It is my liberty that I put forward to gain my property. So as I said before, any inhibition of rights is a negation of rights. It's a negation of my life. It's taking my life away from me. Now, if we want to go on to strictly economic issues, you can look at the importance of free trade. Free trade is, like everything in philosophy of liberty, entirely volitional. I earn property, you earn property. But let's say we want to enter into a trade with one another. If it was beneficial to me, but you thought it was detrimental to you, chances are, unless you're an irrational person, you wouldn't enter into a trade with me. Because it wouldn't do you any good. It wouldn't be beneficial to you, but the beauty of free trade is that people enter into economic agreements with one another because they're mutually beneficial. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. I mean, who can say that, oh, I would trade a bar of gold for a loaf of bread? No one would do that because it wouldn't be mutually beneficial to both people. Now, free trade in general is not just between people, but between nations. Our federal government has inhibited free trade more often than it's instituted it. It has instituted slavery more often than it's freed people from it, and it has murdered, in my sense of the word, more often than it has protected life, at least in the last few years. Now, we have countless tariffs, we have countless taxes, we have countless quotas, excises, whatever you want to call them, that keep us from exercising our free trade. We have sin taxes on cigarettes, alcohol, whatever, that go from one person to another, saying, oh, we don't think that's right for you, therefore you shouldn't have it. Even now, I'm sure many of you are aware, they're putting sin taxes on food. Stuff high in sodium, high in fat, colas, saying you have to pay extra for this because it's not good for you. Well, I know it's not good for me. I'd be ignorant if I didn't know that drinking 12 cans of soda every day was bad for my health. But that's my decision. That's my choice. I have my own values. So let's just say I value that soda far more than I value my health. And I'm free to search for that value. I'm free to say, okay, well, yeah, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off in my health and the soda, but I value the soda more. Now, most people would value their health more, clearly, because if they didn't, there would be a law against it. But just because most people have it does not mean, have a particular value, does not mean they can enforce that value over someone else. So that's the difference between a republic and a democracy. A republic comes from the Latin word publica, right? Public space. While a democracy comes from the Greek word demos, meaning the common people, or more accurately, the mob. Now, in a republic, the government has control only over public things, only over that which is in the public sphere, such as trade with foreign nations, the military, instituting courts of justice, and ensuring mutual harmony between individuals. While in a democracy, the majority wins no matter what. The mob rules in every issue. They say, we don't agree with you, therefore we're going to trample you. We're going to squash your rights. We're going to say that we disagree with you, therefore you don't have a right to think what you do. Like I believe it was James Madison once said in the Federalist Papers, even if every Athenian assembly, every member of an Athenian assembly was an Aristotle, every Athenian assembly would still be a mob. Because the majority would still have ultimate authority over the minority. Now, America is a republic. That's how we were instituted. We subjected the government to supreme moral law. Rather than allowing the government to set moral law, as it had been throughout history, like single individuals or groups of individuals would spend their whole lives dictating what was and was not right. This is very Hobbesian, if those of you who follow philosophy, saying the Leviathan, the perfect ruler would be a ruler with all power, but would still let the people live freely. Now that's unrealistic, quite blatantly. To say that someone with all power would still allow people to have happy, fulfilled lives. Power corrupts, and it corrupts absolutely. Now, in a republic, we elect our representatives to vote on only those issues which affect everyone.